Part of my question's already been answered. I was going to ask, how much of yourself did you put in the role? Is James like you at all? And you already answered that.
Oh, sorry.
Saves time. The last part of my question was, I know he kind of looks like you. Is that intentional?
I believe it couldn't be helped. There were no visualizations for James prior to my engagement, right? So I don't know if they intentionally waited till they had me cast, or if they just hadn't finished visualizing him in their mind. I've seen Sato's original sketches. You go and look through them, and you'll see there's just one cryptic sketch. It's in my photo album for Silent Hill. It's the only sketch of James that exists prior to production. So James looks a little bit like me, and he looks more like me in some scenes than he does in others. I think perhaps in the mirror contemplation scene in the men's room, or in the parking lot, I believe he looks more like me than he does in, say, some of the gameplay scenes. James is heavier than I am. He's probably got a good 25 pounds on me, and I'm thinner of frame, but I think face-wise and hair-wise, they definitely got close.
Okay.
So they took pictures of us, all of us, with video camera for modeling facial expressions, because we were acting it out with all that drama. So they were running the mocap on our bodies and running video on our faces so that they could get, to the extent that the time and budget allowed, they could model the facial expressions. That wasn't just for me, that was for all of us. And they took stills as well, so for higher resolution. So I'm going to guess they made more of an effort to make them not look like us than to make them look like us. You know what I mean? I think it was it was us, and then they had to make it look a little different to avoid the image rights issue.
Okay, now I know you had touched upon this earlier, but how exactly did not just you but all the actors prepare in all your roles? Because the way you were describing it earlier, it sounded like a very method type of performance where you would literally act out every single thing. Would that be safe to say?
Well, my understanding of method acting is that it's when you, as the actor, you actually go beyond the script and you create a whole biography in your mind.
Yeah.
Some people even write them down and come up with all of this arcane past life experience stuff, and you live it, you become that. And so when you slip into character, you are no longer who you are. You were the character. That's my understanding of method acting. Now,
yeah.
I don't, some really successful actors laugh at that. They just go and they just do what they do, and they don't give much credit to the concept of method acting. But that's what I studied in school, and that's what I tried to do. We didn't really get much support, frankly, from the directors. I don't think the Japanese directors understood. In fact, I don't think any of them understood what was happening. It was really so lucky in many ways. I think, looking back, I'm guessing here, but I think I'm right. The reason that we were mocapped together, and the reason we performed the scenes together, sometimes with as many as 3 or 4 characters on the stage at the same time, was because they wanted to get the body movements and the nuances of the body movements correct. But the effect of that was that the actors, who later would do the vocalizations, were playing the roles for real and building on each other and getting inspiration inspiration from each other and tension from each other. So later, I mean, we did this, it was 3 months of live performance on stages of these scenes, and then 3 days in a voice recording studio, a sound studio. So for people who think it's a voice recording job, I'm always confused by that. For me, it was a performance, and then the voice recording was like an afterthought. But it was, I guess, if other games, maybe they use different mocap people, and then they have voice talent come in and just sit in a booth and lay tracks over, or just read scripts. No wonder Silent Hill 2 was so special and different when it came out. If that's what the state of the art was prior to Silent Hill 2, because they wanted better body movement and close interaction between bodies, and so they had to separate that with special magnetic sensors as opposed to the light sensors. We could get multiple characters on stage, but because we did that, we were able to practice those cutscenes as live performances. When we went into the recording studio, even if we were sitting in the booth by ourselves, recording only our lines, it was just easy to remember the stage and pull up that exact feeling again. And I think that was a really lucky break. I can't say that they knew what they were doing, because I'll tell you why I suspect they didn't even know what happened there. It was just luck. Is because there are a couple of scenes where they didn't do anything to make sure that happened. One of them is Angela and I on the staircase, which starts out really weird and unnatural, and the timing is bad, and the way the voices that the characters play off what each other said is just off. And then it slips into normalcy toward the end. If you watch that scene again, you'll see what I'm saying. It's clear that we were not together when we recorded those lines. Other scenes, we were together and we performed them together. So they're really tight and they flow nicely. So lucky break again. That great story, great casting with Monica in particular, and Dave, fantastic for that part. And then we've got to practice on the mocap. They had the mocap people doing the voices, so we lived those parts long before we ever recorded them. You get in the studio, and they didn't even know. They didn't even have to direct us. There was no directing necessary. We were doing it ourselves.
Wow.
It was good. It was good.
So how much leeway were you given with the dialogue? Were you allowed to make any changes, or was it?
I certainly, you know me. I mean, I have my own ideas. So
I've noticed.
I certainly tried to get them to make some changes. I tried to talk them out of that dog ending, which I said was totally ridiculous. And they, one of the directors in particular and I had good rapport, Sato-san, and everyone else gave up because I flat out refused to do it. And it was nearing wrap, so I knew they couldn't go back and get another actor. So I'm getting kind of uppity, right? So Sato, you got to go in and work on Guy. He likes you. So Sato's like, Guy-san, please understand. This is a game thing. It has nothing to do with the performance. It's part of games. They all have these inside jokes in them, and it's only the people who are really into the game, who've played it several times, are ever going to see this. Okay, right. You got to just go along with me. You got to trust me. And on that basis, I did it. And yes, I did record the Japanese lines in my voice. Oh, cool. So I didn't win on that one. And I'll tell you another one that I didn't win on, which I'm glad I didn't win, now looking back on it. This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there eating pizza?
That's pretty much become your favorite line, hasn't it?
Only because the fans love it, right? I wanted it out. It was a dumb line. Okay, what I really wanted out was the word monsters. What adult is going to say monster? It's a kid's word. All right? It's a kid's word. Okay, kids play the game, but that doesn't matter to me. I'm in character. I'm James, and I'm not going to say this town is full of monsters. I'm going to say something else. This, whatever. You guys are better at it than I am. I'm not going to say How can you sit there eating pizza was okay? I didn't mind that, but monsters was the word I had problem with, and I pushed and and I know why that was in the script. Monster is Japanese English. Monster, 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 monster. Monster doesn't have childish connotations in Japanese. It's an adult word. So they thought they knew what they were talking about, and the translator did not have the sense to argue with them on that one, or if he did, he lost too, because that word should have been something else. But looking back on it, as I said, I guess I'm wrong. It's a fan favorite, so there you go. Now, there were a lot of places where they did take our advice, not just me, but Monica as well. Just so that we could say it naturally. And people probably don't think our delivery is natural, but trust me, it was pretty natural for what we had, the lines we were given. So there you go. It was cooperative, but they were the directors and they knew what they wanted. We were being paid to give them what they wanted, so we did. And when Sato said, "You got to do it," I did it. The dog. When they said monsters has got to stay, we liked that word. It stayed.
Yeah, I was telling Dina about that. Like, the one thing about that scene, when you say to Eddie, it's like you're talking down to a child or something. It's just the way that it comes across. It's just that whole. I mean, that's always the indication that I always got from that is like you're treating Eddie as basically like a child, just the way you say that one thing. that was the only thing about. I was just like, that's kind of odd.
Considering Eddie, maybe that's kind of appropriate. You kind of have to talk to him like a child to get your point across.
Yeah,
maybe with Laura I might have said that, but
yeah.
but I don't know about Eddie. Eddie, have you gone nuts?
Yeah. Okay. Well, unfortunately, Guy, you seem to have already answered the question I was going to say. So.
Sorry, Tony.
That's okay.
Ask it again. Maybe I can, wax on poetic. Go ahead. What is it?
Just for the heck of it, let's do it anyway. Looking back, would you have done anything differently?
Well, with the benefit of hindsight, and knowing now that because we practiced the lines together on the stage many times, that improved the delivery in the sound studio, right? So I would go back and I would beg, plead, wheedle, demand, pout. I would do anything I could to get the directors to let us rehearse all of the scenes together. And so all of the cut scenes would have that power, that natural flow, where they weren't separately recorded. I'm going to guess that about 75% of the lines were recorded following live performances of the scenes, and 25% were not. It could have easily been done. And if they said no, I might have called Donna up and said, "Donna, could we get together and rehearse this?" She's a pro. She might have said yes.
Yeah.
In which, and then those scenes would be smoother. That's the only thing I think I would do differently, is encourage the production team to let the actors use their whole body to practice and develop the correct delivery for the lines before they go into the recording session.
Okay, now the second part of Dina's upcoming question, she and I have very conflicting opinions on, but Dina, go ahead.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, what's your favorite and least favorite endings, and which ending do you consider canon? That is kind of a controversial question now that I think of it.
Okay, well, all right. My favorite ending is the leave ending, and I consider it canon, if you will, because that's the ending that I want Okay, so if I am feeling and emoting James and being James, I don't want to die. It's too strange and weird to try and bring the dead back to life. I know that that's going to be a mess, and I don't want to stay in that town anyway. So we can all figure out, you know, you might be able to get her to come back to life at the resurrection ending, but you're going to have to stay in that town. So screw that. The in-water ending, James isn't going to kill himself. Sorry. I mean, he maybe should, but he won't. I'll give you some insight into why he wouldn't do that, but not right now. Ask me that separately. Then the leave ending is the happy ending, if you will. And Mary wanted that. And Laura, even though she was really bratty to James in the game, was kind of lost and alone and needs a protector and help. And that's what James is about. He defines himself with his relationships with women. And she would have attracted his attention, especially if he got to the letter where Mary says that's what she hoped for. That line gets read pretty quick, but you could see a nuclear explosion in James' heart when Mary reads that. It's almost like Laura is Mary, and now he can love Laura instead, and in place of Mary. So that was, for me, that's how it ends. The least favorite
dog ending.
Well, you know, it's a toss-up between the dog ending and the space aliens, but apparently the space aliens have something to do with one of the other games, and there's kind of a link there, so
it's like a huge crossover.
I'm gonna go with the dog ending is my least favorite. Although maybe dog ending, at least it's funny. Resurrection is just weird. So
yes.
Another one that is my second favorite ending is the you better do something about that cough.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was cool.
See, the one that me and Dina differ on is that in my heart of hearts, I truly think that the in-water ending would be canon, because while the optimist in me would want to think that, after all this, James learns his lesson, and then he, adopts Laura or whatever, and everything. But, I'm just thinking about, how would I, take that? And it's just like, through that whole thing, I would just be like, I don't want to go through this anymore. Screw this. Just get it over with. So that's why I think that the in-water ending is the real ending.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I feel you, man. let me delve into the relationship between Mary and James a bit with you.
All right.
At the risk of sounding off the map, James was being killed. He was dying along with Mary. As she was dying, and she may have been dying psychosomatically to prevent him from leaving her. And James, at some point, perhaps not consciously, realized that every step Mary took closer to death brought him closer to death. And that, in my opinion, is why he ended her life, because he didn't want to die with her. She was sucking him down.
Yeah. She
would have liked him to die with her, and he didn't want to. And this is, I don't say this easily. This is really, really dark. Because they were together, they had happy times, but she was a manipulative person and kind of introverted. So she lived her life by controlling James, and he was withdrawn as well. He had issues from the past, so he was content to do that. But somehow she got sick. Okay, so
Yeah.
I believe people have karma. They have things that they're acting out in the material world, and I believe Mary, that was a control thing, and it was going to bring him down. It's a little controversial, but that's part of what I had in my mind.
I actually never thought of that.
And so James, as a survival mechanism, had to separate from her, but he could not leave her alone. So he did what he did. And we must remember, she asked him. She was horrible to be with in those periods. You get that rage period. You guys see it only once in the game, but I was in a difficult relationship, so I know you don't see it once. You see it all the time, and it builds up inside you. And he was dying, and the only way to escape for him, that's the decision he made. It's a terrible Faustian bargain. He's now doomed. But that's why I think he transferred his hopes and his zest for life, his desire to live, toward Laura, and would have pursued at that. Now, one fan, I wish I could remember the name right now, but there was some speculation about what would a sequel be if there was one, and there have been a lot of ideas tossed around, but the one that appealed to me most was Laura and James left. Laura has grown up. She's now like 20 or 21, and she disappears. And she goes to Silent Hill looking for Mary, because she gets a letter. And she leaves a letter for James, and he's like panicked. It's all going to happen again. So he goes back looking for Laura. And that was a pretty heavy idea. I like that one.
I just think like, wait a minute, I know this trick.
Does that sound like the second one? I mean, the fourth one with Heather?
Like,
have you seen this girl? Have you seen this girl?
Speaking okay, I don't know if we've actually touched on this one or not yet, but did you, like when you were in the process of like doing all the mocap and doing all the voice acting and everything like that, did you expect Silent Hill 2 to be such a phenomenon that, like, even to this day, years after it's been released and everything, that people would still be talking about not only the game itself, but specifically the James character?
No, I really didn't. I think we all were very, very pleased with the level of intensity and the quality of the performances we gave. And we all knew that there was something magic that was happening, but I don't think any of us had an idea that it would go on to become what it is. And I suppose, in my opinion, it has to do with the story. Because the gameplay, if you do Let's Plays, and I know, Dina, you've just finished one, and I'm threatening to try one just for fun. But,
thanks for stealing my thunder, by the way. Just kidding.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to need your help to do it, Dina. So, anyway, I think the story is what's held it. It's what's made it. Kids don't forget it. Yeah. I don't want to speculate on what types of people are moved by this, but I do know they're nice. All the fans have been really, really nice. Some of them have interesting ways of expressing themselves, but they're respectful and sincere. And it's been a great pleasure to be a part of it and to get to know them. and I know Monica feels the same way. So, no, I don't think any of us knew it was going to become this. I'm not really sure I understand what it is even yet. I know it's important to people,
Yeah.
but I don't know how or why. But I suspect it has something to do with this, the torment, the tragedy of James enduring a situation for which there is no happy ending possible. I mean, trust me, even if he leaves with Laura, there's going to be problems.
Yeah.
He's not going to walk away and be able to escape that burden, you know.
Okay.
What are your opinions on Pyramid Head, and what do you think of him showing up again in the movie and in later games?
I agree with a lot of the more knowledgeable pundits and commentators on this. He's been overused. I think they should have developed something new. It's been overworked. So, well, you know, no. Correct me if I'm wrong, but after 4, the games became more like games. With there was a dungeon game where they go down in the dungeon, and someone was complaining that it's just like another game. They've become like shooter games.
Yeah, so far they've come out with 2 games for like mobile cell phones, but I think those are Japan only. And in arcades they came out with like a rail shooter type thing, which is like a light gun game basically.
But
and of course Pyramid Head's in that one too.
I was gonna say, I think the one you're thinking of is Book of Memories, and that's the one I believe they're currently working on.
Yeah, they're working on one for the PSP, which
right,
is
right. Book of Memories. I think some people sampled it or watched some cutscenes from it, and then made comments that, hey, you guys have dragged this right down into an arcade style of play where it's a shoot 'em up, and okay, we all need to step back and recognize that Konami's in the game business, and there are new fans coming along, and maybe when we were younger we played shoot 'em up type games too with Boogeyman in them, and Pyramid Head's a pretty heavy Boogeyman, so I don't hold it against Konami, but it's it's not my place to say, but I would agree that he's been overused, but it's the nature of the business, I suppose. That I'm just pleased that I was a part of Silent Hill 2, and that's the one, and it'll never, and that my voice is going to still be in it along with Monica's and Dave's and Donna's, because it's a classic, and it won't go away. It'll always be the defining moment for the series, I believe. And so it's nice to have been a part of that. And it was the moment where Pyramid Head made his debut, or did he come out in 1?
No, Pyramid Head came out in 2. Yeah.
Yeah. See, so
and then he sold out.
Being derivative. Yeah, he's a sellout after he gets paid.
Yeah, Pyramid Head's let fame go to his whatever the hell he's wearing. But
as my younger brother would say, he's become a meme.
Oh God.
Pretty much, actually.
This must stop. But speaking.
I want to become a meme. I need some. What's my line? The pizza line, right? That's my meme line. Okay.
There you go.
Well, actually, for a while, the dog ending became kind of a meme in and of itself. For a while, they would put that on everything for a while. So you're in there.